I would like to call this special meeting to order. A quorum is present. The date is August 14th, 2025, and the time is 5 o'clock. Notice of this meeting was posted in the time and manner required by law, and now we're going to move right on to Board Superintendent announcements.
I actually don't have any.
Well, the fact you are here and everyone has survived the first almost week of school, we'll announce that. We'll now move on to item 2, oral communication from the public. The board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. Anyone wishing to address the board must have completed a public comment card before the start of the public portion of tonight's meeting, to indicate the agenda item or topic about which they wish to speak. We have one card tonight, so we'll go ahead and give some more information on communication from the public. Oral communication from the public is governed by AISD policy, BED local. Under the Texas Open Meetings Act, the board is not permitted to discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for the meeting. The speaker will be given up to 5 minutes to address the board, and if, however, the total number of speakers seeking to address the board is more than 5, the per speaker time might be limited and reduced. In no event will a speaker be given less than 1 minute to address the board. Today we have one speaker, so we will not be adjusting the time. Dr. Kuhn, what happened? We'll monitor the time and make the speaker aware when their time is up. And I believe there's a piece on the podium that you can use for guidance too. Okay, let's hear from Tammy Fogel. Thank you.
Thank you. This feels a lot more formal than I was expecting, but I guess that's okay. So I'm grateful for these meetings because, like I've told you many times, I learn a lot, and I'm trying really hard as a part of the community to understand how we stay engaged, stay involved, even with not having students in the schools. So just because I'm up here and I don't have a student in your school doesn't mean I don't care greatly about students. I am an educator by profession and have done it my whole life, and so I'm not necessarily part of your team, but I'm part of team Let's Help Kids Succeed, and so that's really important for me to make sure you know. And when I heard about the golden pennies, I was like, this sounds awesome, let's do it. Why wouldn't we want to do it, right? Because it's not going to cost us the money to get it, and then so I was kind of excited to be able to help promote it because I do think that part of the struggle y'all have at times is getting people to pay attention to the important information you share. I mean, there are some places to do it, but a lot of people kind of tune it out these days. But what I was going to point out is I was really shocked when I discovered that the golden pennies actually cost taxpayers money a little bit, but in order to get that free money or that money that's available, it costs a little bit. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that looks, and I'm hoping tonight's discussion will help explain that further, because again, I understand we're not asking taxpayers to pay more for than what they paid last year, but they're also paying city taxes and county taxes, and so there's a lot of other things that are in the pie for citizens who are taxpayers, not just this one entity. And I'll just say that I believe strongly in making sure that we help people succeed. We don't want to wait until they fail and then call them out. And so I would hope that in the future that we make sure that we work together to make our schools as safe as they can be, and that we partner with laws on the books to make sure that the libraries are safe and then there's not materials in there. And right now it's not so much. And so I would hope that we wouldn't take the posture we had on Thursday night that we don't have a problem, it's other places that have a problem, because we have a problem. And Dr. King, you're new to our area and you haven't been around when we have been fighting this battle more specifically in past years. And so it's a hill that I will die on, because I do believe children should be protected by the adults in the community. And I'm hoping we can shift and redirect the narrative rather than saying we don't have a problem, but let's root out the problem and get it solved. And make sure that we are doing our part as adults to make sure that the kids have a safe place to learn and grow and are not exposed to materials that are harmful to them. They're not just personally offensive to me, like I don't have an issue. It's that they've been proven that they are harmful to children. And so anyway, but I'm excited to learn a lot. I hope my brain can take it all in, because this is going to be a lot of information that I'm not sure I have room for. So I'm looking forward to hearing what Ms. Hines has to say about the budget, and I think that wraps it up. So thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Appreciate that. We will now move on to item 3, public hearing on budget and tax rate for 25-26. Ms. Hines is joining us, Chief Financial Officer, and will give a brief summary of the budget and tax rate.
All right. Good evening. Do we
Well, I
need
need
to?
to open the public
Yes, ma'am.
session. It's 5:05. We'll be opening a public hearing on our tax rate and budget.
Awesome. Good evening. I'm excited to be here and talk about the budget and tax rate this evening, so thank you for the opportunity. Here's what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to go over just consideration of the ordinance to set the tax rate for the coming fiscal year. We're going to take a look at the proposed revenue, proposed budget summary, and then the proposed budget by function will be an overall look of what you see in the budget book, revenue and expenditures together, and then have a time for any questions. Okay, so first, this slide probably looks a little familiar. We talked about this in budget workshop, in our last budget workshop. So I'm just gonna kind of remind and reiterate, okay, the first column with a total tax rate of $99.24 was the prior year's tax rate. So the middle column is the tax rate that is what's called the VATRE, so the voter approved tax rate. The tax rate we're gonna recommend this afternoon is the third column, and it's a tax rate that is inclusive of 3 golden and 3 copper pennies on the maintenance and operations side. So chart gives you the exact numbers, but I really want to point out the difference in fiscal year 24-25 to the recommended tax rate in yellow, and that change in the very bottom will show you the overall tax rate this year is still going down. So here in a little bit, when we get to the later portion of the meeting, this is what we're going to recommend. Obviously, it's yours to vote and approve. We're going to recommend the maintenance and operation rate be set at 74.21, interest and sinking at 21.59 for a total tax rate for fiscal year 26, which is tax year 2025, of 95.80.
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Yes, sir.
What was the tax rate the previous tax year?
The previous year, the total tax rate was 99.24.
Thank you.
So I want to include these reminders as we're talking about this. These probably sound a little familiar too, but based on the tax rates from the prior year and what we're recommending this year, the tax rate for Abilene ISD will decrease from the prior year, and taxes on an average Abilene ISD property will also decrease. And the 6 pennies that we are recommending equates to about $10 million for Abilene ISD students and staff. So I wanted to give that one more reminder of what we're talking about when we're talking about setting the tax rate this year.
On the $10 million in new revenue, how much of that is funded by the local taxpayer and how much of that is funded by new state funding coming from outside of Abilene?
Right.
About-
The matching and what we earn.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's great.
About 3.7 million of that is locally funded from the taxpayer, with the remaining 6.3 coming from the state of Texas. That triggers our Tier 2 funding that's paid on the golden and copper pennies at guaranteed yield. That's all state funds coming through to us.
And the 3.7 is simply the amount that we collected from those 6 pennies.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Is that like saying the same thing as 0.06% of our tax revenue we brought in? Is it equal to that, what I just said? 0.06% of what we collected?
Of the 10 million?
No, of total taxes collected.
I don't know the percentage. I could figure it.
But it's because it's those 6 pennies.
Yes, it would be it would be a smaller, just because, let's go back. The total, 6 pennies of the total M&O rate is a pretty small portion. But I don't know the percentage offhand.
Okay, I didn't know.
We could figure it.
If I'm trying to understand it,
Sure.
I didn't want to be passing out wrong information.
Sure, and we can provide, I can certainly get all of that, the percentages out. I have them actually figured. I just don't have them on the top of
Okay,
my head.
that's okay.
So here's a look at our proposed revenue. Now, keep in mind, this revenue, we've gone a little bit conservative on not including potential impact from if the tax rate election, if that's the route we go, if that was to pass. This revenue proposed tonight does not include potential impact from that, okay? So I want to talk just a second about, if you look at 5711, the property tax is current. So we've got an increase this year of about 2.2 million, and that's due to two things. One, we saw some increase in our taxable value. So there were kind of two things that happened. We would have had a bigger increase, but we have an assumed homestead increase this year. That's going to be on the ballot in November, but when we plan, we assume that it passes. So our value still rose some, even with that considered. Our tax rate was not compressed on the maintenance and operations side as much as it has been in prior years. So that really boils down to our property growth grew at a slower rate than the state. And in that calculation, when that happens, we see minimal compression. So because of those two factors, we're going to have an increase in property tax collected here locally, just right off the bat. The second increase you'll see is down under state revenue for per capita and the foundation payments. The 7.4 million is really the adjustments made in House Bill 2, so increase in basic allotment. Some of the allotment changes that have passed, the biggest chunk of that is the staff teacher retention allotment. So while we have an increase in revenue here, we're going to have an increase in expense to pay those salary increases. That'll kind of offset each other. But still, even with that considered, there's an increase in state revenue. All else considered, once analyzing how this year's performed, there were really no major adjustments needed in any other revenue category, so we've stayed about the same. Any questions on revenue? All right. So here's just the budget summary before we look at by the function. We have our local, state, and federal revenue. This number for expenditures is inclusive of what you were able to approve and pass on Monday night for the compensation plan. So considering our revenue, the payroll, current payroll where it's at with salary adjustments and then non-payroll expenditures, it puts us at a deficit budget of just a little over $3.4 million. Any questions on this?
Help me remember why local revenue changed from this page to the last page. It was 43.
So it's down at the bottom for the
okay.
total.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I see that.
So the $3.4 million deficit this year,
Yes, sir.
and last year, what was it?
$12.9 million. All right, here's a look at the proposed budget by function. Same numbers in total for general fund. You're seeing student nutrition fund expects small excess over revenue in that $44,000. So pretty much operating at a neutral. Debt service, I do want to point out to you, because this probably looks a little different. So there's a deficit in debt service. So it looks like our revenue is 13.6 million and our payments are about 16.5 million. This is purposely done because we have received hold harmless money from the state for debt service for specifically paying down our debt. So that money is currently sitting in debt service fund balance. So this is not a phenomenon. This is something that we knew was going to happen. We're using that fund balance to help pay down some debt. It's about $3 million that we'll use out of debt service fund balance to go towards this year's payment. So we don't have to levy as much tax to meet our debt obligations. That's why the revenue we collect this year is lower than what you normally see. Normally, you see a revenue amount and an exact expenditure amount where there's a zero net change on the bottom line. This year, that net change is what we're anticipating to use out of fund balance. Any questions on that?
Those are called hold harmless funds?
Yes, sir.
And why did we get those this year?
It was built into the state funding mechanism. We've actually received them the last 2 years and likely will receive them going forward. And it's essentially to help districts, if you lost any like property value from the increased homestead exemptions. So the first one, when we increased to $100,000 per homestead exemption, now we're increasing again to 140. The state put in a mechanism to help districts that are losing taxable value because of that had debt obligations. They had to meet certain criteria, and ours do. So we receive a percentage of hold harmless money to help offset that.
So clarifying question, if we would have held on to that roughly $3 million, kept it in fund balance, our tax rate for voters would be higher than what we're going to be recommending tonight?
Yes, sir, on the INS it would.
So we spent that money specifically to drive down what the taxpayers have to pay?
Yes, sir. And then internal service fund is our workers' comp. This one is revenue coming in, and then our expenditures paying for our any kind of workers' comp administration claims going out. This budget is pretty typical, the same every year. There was no need for adjustments, and also don't expect it to remain at a neutral point at the end. No excess or deficiencies for workers' comp. Any questions on that?
Sorry, one more question about the hold harmless.
Sure.
So those funds, we could have chosen to spend those however we wanted?
So there's actually 2 hold harmlesses, the maintenance and operation. If you qualify for those, yes, you can spend those like general fund. These specifically can only be spent in debt service. They were specifically for bonded debt and debt payments. So they live in Fund 599, the debt service INS, and they can only be spent for those expenditures. Any other questions?
So the tax rate y'all are wanting us to approve is with the VATRE increase. What happens if that does not pass?
If that does not pass, we would come back and adopt a tax rate. Let me get back. We would come back and adopt the middle tax rate. That's the tax rate we can adopt without having any kind of voter approval or election. So if the VATRE, if you call a VATRE and it was not to pass, our tax rate would go back to the middle column.
And there's none of the possibly new tax money that's being budgeted right now. It's
Correct.
off of that, okay.
Correct.
The rate that we grow compared to the rate that the TA or that Texas gives us to compare against, that is up to, we never know what that's going to be.
No, ma'am.
So we have also grown in taxes collected before, or no, also gotten less. It all just depends on if Abilene grew more than the state or if Abilene didn't. So that's not like unusual to have a gain of revenue from local.
Yes, ma'am.
And
That's
it's also not unusual to have a loss from local.
That's correct.
But it doesn't matter because the state's going to fill up the rest of that bucket.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And what we're talking about is getting cents to be levied that go above that line that the state fills up to. And it's money that can be kept, that we get levied in. That money gets to stay here, plus the state matches it at some percentage.
Yes, ma'am.
And would you please go into what recapture means and where our path is toward that?
Sure.
Because if you familiar with Midland, for example, They get all of their money from taxes to fill their whole bucket and extra, and they have to send that back to the state.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if they didn't have golden pennies, they would not get anything from the state.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
since they do have some golden pennies, I'm assuming,
Yes, ma'am.
they get to keep that, plus the state sends, it's like the money passes. The money they're sending back, plus the money the state's sending over because of their golden pennies and copper pennies.
Yes, ma'am. So becoming a recapture district is something we're watching closely because of all of the new values added on with projects here in town. What happens when you become a recapture district or a Chapter 49 district is it means your local tax base that's taxed at your M&O rate generates what the state says you should be able to operate your school on in this massive formula. So when that happens and you become a recapture district, it is essentially exactly what you said. Local funds are coming in and the state says we need 1 billion, okay, we're just gonna say 1 billion. And you collect in local taxes 1.2 billion. What happens is that anything over the limit that they say you need to educate, so in this case it would be the 0.2, would go back to the state. We would have to pay that back. The golden pennies are so valuable, that's actually why they're called golden, is because any money generated in those is not subject to recapture. So when the state, when you're figuring it and you're saying, I've got to send this much back to the state, there is a calculation in there of what you earn from golden and copper pennies. Copper are subject to recapture, but golden are not. So the money you earn from those golden pennies actually stays locally. It's not in danger of having to been sent back to the state. I'm having trouble here. So they're really important. It's really important to get those and hang on to them because that's why they are so valuable. It's not just the tax aspect here locally. It's also what they trigger on the state side, and then later on down the road, if and when we become, not probably if, it's probably when we become a recapture district, that money stays here. It's not in danger of being sent back.
So this is a frugal look into the future for
Yes, ma'am.
us.
Yes, ma'am.
Because going backwards on that, district whose property poor and they're way below the state average, they can't come anywhere near filling their bucket. So technically, that money sent back by Midland gets put back into the state to reimburse the state for all the money they gave to that district that didn't even collect a very large portion of their bucket, which is the student allotment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But our approach takes Abilene tax dollars and keeps them back in Abilene as opposed to sending them back to Austin so Austin can spread the peanut butter across the rest of the state minus Abilene.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
So the budget, the $3.4 million deficit budget we would adopt tonight is based on the VATRE not passing in November, correct?
Correct.
So with the support of our community, if that passes, we're gonna go from approximately $3.4 million deficit budget to a $6.5 million surplus budget.
Correct.
So that means in one fiscal year, we'd go from a $12.9 million deficit with the help of our community to a $6.5 million surplus budget.
Yes.
But some
That's
of
an
that,
amazing turnaround in 1 year.
and would that be, in my understanding, that money would also be paying back our general fund? Because we took 12 million out of it the year before.
Yeah, and
Fund balance.
it would be paying back fund balance depending on how fiscal year 25, once the audit shakes out. One of the things you'll see here in the budget amendments is I actually have amended our revenue this year. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But there was two things that happened for fiscal year 25 in our revenue. One is we were able to amend to include a little bit more interest earnings that we're gonna realize. The second thing is we did earn more at the state level, and there's two pretty big reasons why. One is we did qualify for M&O hold harmless, so we received some funding for the maintenance and operation hold harmless that we can use just on operation. The second thing is our ADA, which is our average daily attendance, outperformed what we budgeted. So we're earning more revenue from the state versus what we budgeted, just because we had, our enrollment didn't see as much decline and kids were coming to school. So we beat our budget there. So depending on how fiscal year 25 shakes out, it likely won't be the full 12 million that hits fund balance, but yes, you're exactly right. That money would help reimburse what we spend out of fund balance.
And it also goes to highlight that if we do go from a deficit to a budget surplus, that's not AISD going to go throw a big party. There's a lot of things that those funds are already obligated for, obviously supporting our teachers, supporting the classroom, and a range of whole other things that we've really kind of tightened our belt and adjusted on. Many of those things we're going to maintain a tight belt on, but it allows us to pour those resources back into areas that we otherwise haven't because of the budget shortfall, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I just want to continue to praise you guys and give you guys credit, because a turnaround like that doesn't happen by luck. It happens by a lot of hard work, a lot of hard decisions, people coming together and finding new ways to do things, creative solutions to the problems that we have. And so I just want to continue to sing the praises of the leadership of this district, that they are doing hard work and it's making a big difference. And I want that to continue to be recognized.
Thank you.
I think what was the most eye-opening for me was when you declared that Abilene would become a recapture district, and that's 2 or 3 years down the road, because Lansing's coming into us in pieces, not the whole thing at once. And I'm like, well, thank God you're giving us this information now so we can be proactive and not reactive. And if we didn't know this and you knew it and didn't tell us, thank you, because we need to be able to look as far down the road as you do to make frugal decisions for our district, because that's crazy that we would end up to be a recapture district.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And the pain obviously has been felt by teachers and staff, but also parents. Tell that to the folks at Ortiz and at Thomas. And so this is something that the community has already stepped up for. They can step up more with future things that we're doing with respect to the VATRE. But again, this is something that, kudos to you and the team, but really it's a community commitment to education for Abilene, Texas.
Yes,
and so just really proud of all the work.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay.
Right.
Well, the public hearing is going ahead and, is there any questions from the public in regards to what Ms. Hines has given to us? Come on up.
I'm still new to this, and I'm an educator, so I never thought I would be doing budgets and taxes and things like that. And I'm just trying to understand, so please hear me. I'm not coming saying, why aren't you doing it right? I'm just saying, help me understand. What I see on the slides is that last year's rate is being compared to this year's VATRE. 99 was last year's rate, and the VATRE is 89, and then we're asking for 95 ballpark. That's what I'm, to make it easier. I'm just trying to understand how that translates to, because the 99 is what we paid last year. What is the no new revenue rate that we would be paying this year to compare? Because I feel like we're kind of comparing apples and oranges, and I don't think you're trying to deceive us, if that makes sense. I just think that the information may not be available, but how does that change? Because if it was 99 last year, then it's going to look a little different, and it's not comparing. And so the 89 is confusing me, because that's a huge gap. And I don't know if you can speak to that, or anyway. And again, I think we're just still trying to understand it, and a lot of new numbers.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. So in the paper, when we call this meeting, we're required to advertise that. It's also on our website. And then
Can you go back to that slide while you're talking?
I don't have it actually. I'll just put it on the tax rate slide. How about that?
That's fine.
Okay, so the notice of this meeting is on our website and in the paper. Actually, some of the budget documents posted as well will include the tax rate calculation worksheet. And I'm saying that to say both of those are inclusive of a no new revenue tax rate. So this year, once Mr. Ernest at Taylor County Appraisal District figured our total taxable values and come down through the rate, our total no new revenue tax rate was actually $1 total. So even based on last year's rate compared to no new revenue tax rate, it actually went up. So because of, you can really tell on this slide, especially in the INS column, the things we talked about, applying our hold harmless money towards our debt. Our debt has been paid down. Our value is grown, so we don't have to levy as much tax. Because of those three things, our INS rate is able to drop. That's where the biggest swing is in our total tax rate. So based on that, either one of those, the no new revenue tax rate would actually have been more than even what we're asking.
But we are not allowed to add the golden pennies or the copper pennies to INS.
That's correct.
We can only add it to M&O.
Yes, ma'am. Only to the M&O and only with voter approval.
And roughly, what was our tax rate 5 to 10 years ago? At one point, it was like $1.30,
I know when I
right?
joined, it was 1 point something, but
For a long time, it was around the dollar, it seems like $1.17, and it slowly declined. I want to say over the last 10 years, but I could be inflating that number. It's dropped to like a total of 33 cents. So
Yeah, that's right. 33 cents over 10 years is how much we've reduced taxes here.
yeah.
And I appreciate this budget for a couple of reasons, but I do, and I appreciate that about the no new revenue rate, because I think a lot of just citizens in general have noticed different communities kind of get cute and play games with how they advertise rates. And I think that, I'm glad to be on a organization like this that we're not doing that. And so whenever we say that this is not an increase of taxes for our residents, we can say that with full-throated honesty, that it's,
Yes.
when you look at the revenue tax rate, we're not doing anything there that would appear to be gamesmanship.
yes, sir.
Also, something I've learned is that we don't, this number, 0.6821, we get 0.6321 given to us from the state, because that's 5 cents less than what we have already, golden pennies. But everybody has those 5 golden pennies, every single district.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why we don't get to decide what our tax rate is. The state hands it to us. And then we get to add the golden pennies above that.
Yes, ma'am. That's really the only way we can change the M&O tax rate with voter approval is you're exactly right. The MCR, so the 6321 for us this year before our 5 golden pennies, is nothing more than a calculation that the state really mandates.
Y'all are both touching on something really important, and that is that school districts are very different than cities and counties and other taxing entities, in that we don't have very much discretion at all. In fact, what we're talking about tonight is really the only discretion we have. Our INS rate, you can't tax more than what it takes to pay your loans back, and that's completely tied to your values. Your M&O rate, there are extremely strict regulations on what you can tax, and literally there's no discretion outside of a vote for these golden pennies.
That's correct. And the values, just quick reminder, we do not set the values either. So, the values are set by the appraisal districts and the chief appraisers. So that is another factor, that plays into this that we really have no control over.
And that's why, last year we adopted a budget. It was $12.9 million deficit budget. To fix that, we didn't go out asking for money. We looked at our budget and said, what can we cut? And we cut $8 million out of payroll. That was the only way to fix it, was us tightening our belts. And so we did that, right? We didn't get to a balanced budget, but we tried.
But this is also $10 million every single year, because
ma'am.
the copper value may change, but you've told me it's not very much.
Yeah,
What they
the
reimburse us.
guaranteed yield on both the golden and copper can change every year. They're tied to things in the calculation in Austin that, again, we don't have control over, but generally it's not a huge swing. But they are adjusted every year.
the $10 million in brand-new revenue will come to Abilene ISD until such point as the legislature changes how they fund schools. So they could change the law and totally change everything, but until they do that, there are school districts that have been receiving millions of dollars in funding over and above what they would get without these golden pennies for a decade now. And,
this
that's
is
money
not
that
anything new.
we've left on the table. No, it's not new. But it's a repeating source of revenue that can go to buy, replace your old buses and
fixing to
buy
say.
resources and things.
Things that got put on the back burner for a lot of years, buses or other car fleets,
Yes, ma'am.
new instruments, those kinds of things are very reasonably cut first.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Public, welcome.
Budget meetings are not the most exciting things in the whole world, and as you can see, you guys post it and it's out there for people to have available, and they ignore it to their own peril. As we look at a VATRE, my question is, what's gonna be done to help this process along? Because if people see the difference of whatever the numbers were, I don't know now. And they're gonna go, well, why do I wanna pay 9,958 when I could just be paying 898? No. What's gonna happen so that this information gets out? What's gonna happen so that people are informed? Create some kind of a desire for them to understand this is, in the long run, this is for our best interest. It'll keep money in our pockets down the way.
My hope is that I'm able to give public presentations 100 times between, assuming the board passes this tonight, and between then and the election.
And I would like to be a part of that process as well, to be able to give good information.
Yes.
These are important, but I know zero. And so, what's the information that I can gain? Where can I plug in to get that kind of information that says, here's what they're doing? Let me help you understand that, because
Yes.
I'd love to be an informed citizen who can help the process along if I can.
So the other thing I'll tell you is, if this passes tonight, we have a plan to have a special section of our website devoted to trying to provide this information in a very accessible format for the layperson.
And
I
I
think
would
it's-
think too that, Jen, are you available to small groups of citizens that are interested in passing out good material, or someone
Yeah, I'm always available to answer questions
and setting up
as
time
needed.
with you?
Sure.
Because it's
I would-
incredibly complicated.
I
It
would
really is.
say, also, where would we find your workshop where you're with your visuals that's a good thing.
Sure.
I pointed my husband that way to say, let's just start here, because I was trying to explain it to him to practice, and I did nothing but confuse him. So your workshop would be a good
Sure.
basic information.
Absolutely. That can be easily posted on our website, on our
Okay.
finance page as well.
I think
For
that
sure.
would be
And
good.
it's on social media. There's lots of places. And one thing I will say too is that our kids are a good investment. And I think the results that we've seen even as recently as the last 24 hours in our community, talking about the turnaround of quality, is a good investment. It would be really hard for me as a board member to sit here and say, hey, keep spending when the product and the soup doesn't taste very good. And so I think it's important for community groups to talk about this. I think it's important also to note that there are some limitations to what the administration can do.
Yeah.
Their job is to not advocate for this. As taxpayers, we don't need to hire people to go advocate on tax dollars on this issue. What we can do and what we should do is continue to have public forums where we can, providing accurate information, letting community advocates talk about this, letting parents talk about this. Because we have a good story to tell, we have to do a good job of telling it, but I also think it's important to note that there are some boundaries that the administration has. But as a parent, I'm gonna be talking a lot about it, so thank you.
Absolutely.
And I think while this is like maybe the public is hearing about this a lot, there's been a lot of planning going on behind the scenes for the last several months to prepare for this. And the communications team, I'm pretty sure, has a pretty robust plan ready to go, you know, if this passes tonight. So, I mean, I do think there's going to be lots of good information available out there. It's just up to our citizens to take advantage of that, and hopefully we can promote that. But I appreciate you guys being here and
Yeah.
your interest and your willingness to learn, because obviously not many people are willing to do that, and so we are thankful for that.
It's like a bond. There's political action committees that can form, and I believe are being formed, so who are needing people to be a part of that, and we can get your names in that loop.
Is it just one comment, question?
You have one more. We do have other items on the agenda.
I did, oh, okay, that's it. Well, and I was just gonna say, as a person who's very concerned about tax increases, it would be helpful, and I don't know, let me ask it a question, because that's what this is for. Presenting what that 10 million would be used for, so that it would be clear that we're not asking you just to give us more. We're saying, well, there's a plan and a purpose for that money. And again, I want y'all to succeed, because I think a lot of times people hear tax, you know, I'm looking at the 1.0 NNR, and then I'm looking at the 9.5, and I'm like, but I could have even, you're asking half of what the state gave me back, right? Or what the state said y'all had the money for, I'm getting asked to give that over. And I'm saying if there was a plan, I'm all about transparency and knowing what's coming down the pike and where that money's gonna be used for, because I think that's dollars, and not dollars to donuts, I'm coming up with the wrong one, but you know, that's where the rubber meets the road. And again, I think it's gonna be a hard sell in the fact that it's asking, but I don't think, if you come across as we're not asking for so much, it's gonna be harder to sell, but saying, hey, we have a good plan and a purpose, this money can go to, it could really go far. And again, I'm not saying that, anyway, I think you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Absolutely, and what you'll find is if the board passes this tonight, we do have a robust plan that involves teacher raises, balancing our budget, and addressing our aging bus fleet, among some other things. Those are the big ticket items.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll now close the public hearing. Thanks, Jennifer, and the time is 5:42. Now let's move on to business items requiring board action. Item A, the Student Code of Conduct. Dr. Gustavo Villanueva, Associate Superintendent for Student Services, is joining us.
Good afternoon. More exciting information, maybe not so. At the last meeting, we gave you a copy of the Student Code of Conduct, redlined to show where we are making some changes. And I asked you if you had any questions, if you wanted to see additional information, to email me and let me know so that I could answer those questions today. I have no questions to answer, at least not through email. So if you have questions today, I'd be happy to answer those questions. In the student Code of Conduct, I'm making one change that I did not talk about on Monday, and that is, and you have a copy of the student cell phone policy in front of you, I think. And when you look at TASB's guidance, and you look at TA's guidance, there's a slight difference from TA's guidance. And TA says that the board has to create consequences for breaking the cell phone policy. And that means that the consequence portion of that policy that you have, of that regulations that you have, has to be integrated either into the Student Code of Conduct or into actual policy, which is the next item I'm going to talk about. And so what I'd like to do is put it before you. It's the step consequences for violating the cell phone policy. You have to adopt that as part of the Student Code of Conduct. So we will insert that into the Student Code of Conduct. It's the only addition and change that I have at this point. So, and I'm just going to insert the only thing I have to insert is those consequences. We'd like some leeway in the procedural parts in case we need to make adjustments. And if we need to make adjustments to that, then we will come back to you and ask for a change, approve a change. So,
Okay.
Any questions? Otherwise, our recommendation is that you approve the Student Code of Conduct as presented. You do have a final copy of that in your board book, and you have the paper copy of the one item that I'm going to add to the student code of conduct.
They're on the second page.
Yes.
The consequences 1 through 6 there.
Yes.
Okay.
It's offense one, it's consequence for unauthorized phone electronic device use. Offense one is confiscating the phone, and the parent has to come and pick up the phone prior to 4:15. So we set a time limit, so we're not waiting, so that it's clear when that needs to be picked up. And then offense two involves the confiscation in addition to in-school suspension, and then it's progressive in-school suspension beyond that, and then at some point in the sixth offense, it's placement in a DAEP. In my opinion, pretty lenient, at least this year while we're kind of integrating this process, but I think you should probably, by the first or second time we confiscate your phone, you should probably know better.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there a motion regarding the 25-26 Student Code of Conduct?
I move to approve the 2025-2026 Student Code of Conduct as presented.
Okay. We'll now have a roll call vote. Rodney Goodman,
Yes.
Angie Wiley, yes. Cindy Earls,
Yes.
Blair Schrader,
Yes.
Danny Wheat. Yes. Taylor Tidmore,
Yes.
Bill Enriquez.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. Let's move on to item B, proposed local policy FNCE.
Policy FNCE is a policy that we've asked you to adopt. It's a local policy that you're actually required to adopt. And it's basically the policy that we just talked about, which is we need to have cell phone policy in place. It is from TASB's, it is missing the consequence pieces that I just talked about in the Student Code of Conduct, which is why I'm adding it to the Student Code of Conduct rather to the actual FNC policy. So we're asking for approval so that we are legal.
So they're closely connected. One's conduct and the other one, that just seems a little backwards, but I guess the.
Right, we may have the order backwards, but
Okay, just so I'm
FNC is
straight.
one part of what's in the Student Code of Conduct.
Okay.
We have to adopt this policy.
Okay, any questions? Clear on that? The board will consider the board will consider approval of proposed local policy FNCE. Is there a motion regarding this local policy FNCE?
I move to approve the adoption of local policy FNCE in alignment with the recent legislative updates as presented.
Great, we have a second.
Second.
We'll take a roll call vote. Blair Schrader,
Yes.
Danny Wheat,
Yes.
Bill Enriquez,
Yes.
Angie Wiley, yes. Cindy Earls,
Yes.
Rodney Goodman,
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item C, 24-25 fiscal year budget amendments. Back to Ms. Hines.
Yes. All right. So just a few reminders what this is doing. We are required to have all functions of our budget properly allocated each year. You adopt the budget by function, so that's where that function level comes in for this process as well. This is a step that's verified in the audit process, so we're very close to the fiscal year closing, and then we'll go through our fiscal year audit around October. And any function levels that are not properly covered with budget is a non-compliance finding in the audit report. So it's a really important step to kind of make sure we're covered there. And then this captures all remaining changes to the budget before the year and the books close. So this year, like I mentioned before, did some increases to revenue and made sure we had, normally, if just a reminder, because of things going on this year, we're adopting our budget and doing final budget amendments about 2 weeks earlier than we normally do. So this year on budget amendments, I have added an extra cush and extra cushion to make sure we're okay, since we still have a couple of years to operate, a couple of weeks, I'm sorry. It feels like a couple of years sometimes. A couple of weeks to operate before this fiscal year closes. So I just wanted to make sure we have extra coverage in case something happens in the next couple of weeks that maybe isn't planned for or something like that. So any questions on budget amendments? The recommendation is just to approve as presented, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have them.
Okay, there being no questions, do we have a motion regarding the 24-25 fiscal year budget amendments?
I move to approve the 2024-25 fiscal year budget amendments as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Cindy. We'll now take roll call vote. Taylor Tidmore,
Yes.
Angie Wiley, yes. Blair Schrader,
Yes.
Danny Wheat,
Yes.
Bill Enriquez,
Yes.
Cindy Earls,
Yes.
Rodney Goodman.
Yes.
We have a 7-0 vote on that. The motion passes. We'll now move to item D, adoption of the 25-26 budgets.
Yes, ma'am. So these slides are gonna look a little familiar, but we're gonna just do a quick recap. This gets us just a picture overall revenue, so increase in local property tax revenue, and then as well as state revenue that we talked about earlier in the meeting. And then local revenue, when compared to our current payroll, added in the now approved compensation plan, as well as non-payroll expenditures, gets us to deficit of $3,404,673.61 in the general fund. And then tonight we're adopting general fund, student nutrition, debt service, and workers' comp as well. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In all of the things that we've heard flying around through the air in the last few weeks, did student nutrition take a hit as far as money goes?
They did not. Student nutrition was one of the federal funds that thankfully was never on any sort of radar of, held funding or anything like that.
Okay, I thought I had heard something about a section of it being pulled or some of the funding being denied. Sorry. Anyway, I was just afraid that that we might have a bit of a deficit or a little hole to help student nutrition with.
No, ma'am, and actually, I'll just kind of tag onto that. Our student nutrition department is really awesome, and there are not many districts in the state that can say what we say, that our general fund does not supplement the student nutrition fund. That is not a norm across the state, and we are extremely fortunate that our student nutrition fund and our student nutrition department runs like a well-oiled machine, and this budget is, the one we're just finishing up looks very similar to this one, where they're not operating in a deficit position. They're coming in with either a small plus, a surplus, or a balanced budget at the end, so.
But some of the things that got cut might have been after school, summer, lunch, dinner plans.
Some of the summer feeding, I'm not certain of. Our summer feeding operated this year like it has.
Like normal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Joe, you're nodding. Some of the summer feeding got hit.
No, ma'am.
so we were in good shape.
Okay.
Candace, sorry, I don't know. You want everybody to be able to hear. I'll just speak up. Candace was actually able to get recognition and secure a few sites that other communities can't get done because she's just so persuasive. So she exceeded expectations in regards to summer feeding and providing meals across our city this year.
She is a jewel.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Is there a motion regarding the 25-26 budgets?
I move to approve the 2025-26 budgets for the general fund, student nutrition fund, debt service fund, and the internal service fund as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll now have a roll call vote. Angie Wiley, yes. Danny Wheat?
Yes.
Rodney Goodman?
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore?
Yes.
Blair Schrader?
Yes.
Bill Enriquez?
Yes.
Cindy Earls?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. We'll now move on to item E, adoption of an ordinance setting the 25-26 tax rate.
Yes, ma'am.
She's back.
I'm back. So these probably look a little familiar too. But just a quick recap.
Reinforcement for the learning minds.
Yes. So what you see highlighted in yellow is going to be the recommendation tonight to adopt an M&O tax rate of 74.21, an INS tax rate of 21.59 for a total tax rate of 95.80. That's 3 cents less than the prior year tax rate. And just reminder, again, no matter what happens, the next tax rate that's adopted here for Abilene ISD will decrease from the prior year. No matter what, the taxes on an average Abilene ISD property will decrease. And then 6 pennies, which is the recommendation, 6 pennies equals $10 million for Abilene ISD students and staff. So here's just a summary of maintenance and operation INS total tax rate that's being recommended. And I'm happy to answer any other questions about this as well.
What kind of got swept under the rug with all discussion is the interest in sinking, and it's gone down quite a bit from last year.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
like a perfect storm for
It
us
is.
to go after these pennies, and while it's not costing the taxpayer anything
Yes, ma'am.
extra. Okay. Is there a motion regarding 25-26 tax rate?
So moved to approve the adoption of ordinance setting the 25-26 tax rate as presented.
Thank you, Dr.
Second.
Lee. Seconded by Blair Schrader. Now let's take a roll call vote. Bill Enriquez?
Yes.
Cindy Earls?
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore?
Yes.
Rodney Goodman?
Yes.
Angie Wiley? Yes. Blair Schrader?
Yes.
Danny Wheat?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0 with a lot of work ahead of us. But thank you. We'll now move on to item F, voter approval tax rate election. Oh, this is the one, never mind. Who's there? Oh, you.
I'm waiting on you to call on me.
Dr. Q.
All right.
I think nobody's there.
Thank you, President Wiley, members of the board, engaged citizens here present, and also those on the live stream, and also to Team AISD. Tonight, I want to take just a few minutes to explain what a VATRE is, a voter approval tax ratification election, and why passing this resolution is absolutely critical as a next step for our schools and our students. First, I want to clear up a common misconception before it even takes root. While this VATRE would increase the operation side of the AISD tax rate by 6 cents, that increase is more than offset by an even larger decrease on the debt side of the tax rate, which is caused largely by the increasing property values here in Abilene. So if you approve to go out for a VATRE and the voters approve this VATRE, the total AISD property tax rate will still go down. And because of that lower rate, plus a new $40,000 homestead exemption, bringing that exemption to $140,000, which the exemption vote is on the same ballot, all of that together means the average property owner in AISD will pay significantly less in school taxes next year, whether the VATRE passes or not. So how does this generate new money for our schools? Well, in Texas, certain pennies on the operations side, and we call them golden and copper pennies, they bring in more revenue per penny than regular pennies that we levy. And they also trigger additional state funding that if we don't ask for it, someone else will. These additional pennies, these more heavily weighted pennies, are funded by tax dollars paid all over the state and that includes us here in Abilene. We pay the same taxes that go to fund these additional funded pennies. We've paid in. And these golden pennies have been partially funded by us. The VATRE election is a way for Abilenians to get some of those pennies back here in Abilene, spent on Abilene's children. This election, the VATRE election, will generate $3.7 million in new local revenue, and that will not just be matched by state revenue, it will almost be doubled by state revenue. Because if we invest $3.7 million Abilene dollars, the state will give us $6.3 million from Austin. Tonight's VATRE proposal is specifically for 6 of these high-value pennies. If you say yes tonight and our voters say yes in November, we will unlock more than $10 million in new annual repeating revenue for Abilene schools, all of which will stay local, support the AISD operating budget, help us raise pay, and finally get rid of our budget deficit once and for all. And it creates no new debt for the district. This is not a bond, and our district and taxpayers won't have to repay any new debt because of the VATRE election. So that brief explanation brings me to why this matters so much. I urge you, board, tonight to call this VATRE because it's more than just a vote on pennies. It's a vote to protect progress in our school district. With your approval, we will give our community the chance to invest directly in our students, our teachers, and our shared future. This measure will close the last of our $3.4 million budget deficit. It will help keep great teachers in Abilene ISD classrooms. It will help us replace buses that are older than many of the students who ride them and even some of the drivers. It won't create new debt. It won't gobble up the entire tax cut and the new homestead exemption. Abilene ISD's tax rate is going down this year no matter what. But a successful VATRE election will give AISD the financial stability for years to come so that we can sustain the hard-won academic gains we're just now beginning to see across our district. We've already shown what's possible with disciplined budgeting, bold leadership, a commitment to excellence, and a strong belief in our people. So I ask you, board, tonight, please come together as one voice and give Abilene ISD voters the opportunity to help us in Abilene ISD keep this momentum going. And we're not asking the voters to do it all. We've already cut $8 million out of our payroll to try to balance our budget, and we came very close. If you pay attention to what I write and what I post and what I say, you've likely seen or heard me say this: every student, every day, whatever it takes. Well, all it takes tonight is a vote. And AISD will have $10 million new dollars that it hasn't had to invest in our 14,000 students. A very significant chunk of it, 2/3 of it, funded by dollars not from Abilene taxpayers, but from Austin. So to wrap up, let me just say this, please, let's not slam the brakes on a turnaround that's just beginning. Instead, I would ask you, let's give it jet fuel. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments before we call for a vote or motion? Well, is there a motion regarding the voter-approved tax rate election?
I move to approve the order of an Abilene ISD voter approval tax rate election on November 4th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Let's take a roll call vote. Danny Wheat,
Yes.
Rodney Goodman,
Yes.
Angie Wiley, yes. Cindy Earls,
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore,
Yes.
Billy Enriquez,
Yes.
Blair Schrader.
Yes.
The vote passes 7-0. The motion passes also. Now we have a lot of work ahead of us. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned and the time is 6:03.
Thank you, community, for being here and online, and thank you, board. Thank you, Team AISD.